Our next interview is with John Hendsey, who is a bookseller from Rumney, New Hampshire. Am I getting it right, John?
Correct.
And John, just give us a little biographical sketch of you from the time you were, your education, your family, when you decided you thought you might like to be in the book business, when did you actually get in the book business. Give us a few minutes background on you as a person.
Okay, they'd say in Britain, I read medieval literature, and which I'd say it's helped somehow, but I began buying books. My dear departed ex-wife was very instrumental. She was very supportive, and so was my daughter, Sabrina, and my other kids. We used to go, well, I started off, I bought 30 boxes of books for $5 at an auction.
All for $5?
All for $5. We had been there looking for a table to refinish or whatever, at the end of the day. And fortunately, the books were under tables on the side of the auction hall and with oriental carpets rolled down covering them. Arthur Viens was at that auction, but he didn't know that the books were there. I didn't know who Arthur Viens was at the time, but I found out later who he was. And so I bought the 30 boxes of books for $5, went to the library, did some research. All of the books that were old that I thought were valuable were not necessarily valuable, but and then I started buying books with grocery money. And here I am today.
One big supermarket.
Yeah.
And your wife and daughter were very supportive of you during this.
Yeah. My
whole
kids
period.
were very supportive. We used to go on book trips way, way before the internet. At the time we lived in West Hartford, Connecticut. We'd go on book trips in the summer through Massachusetts, Vermont, and the kids would sit patiently or go out and play, and so they were very supportive. And we ran a bookshop for many years. And
in West Hartford?
In West Hartford,
when,
yeah.
When did you open that bookshop in West Hartford? Do you remember the
I think
year?
I opened the bookshop, I'll take a guess in maybe 1969.
And how long did this bookshop in West Hartford exist?
It existed for about 4 or 5 years.
What made you shut it down?
Well, a divorce, unfortunately, that was the end of that bookshop, and my wife continued to sell books there until she moved to Hawaii, and I went on my own, on the road, so to speak.
Were you a book scout before you established your residence in Rumney?
Oh yeah. I was a book scout ever since I bought those books in.
For $5.
Yeah, and that was, I'm taking a guess, in the early '60s. And if anybody knows when Ken Leach started, we started at about the same time. He on his rounds used to come and visit me when I had a shop in Canton, Connecticut, before the West Hartford bookshop. And then I went to, I'd buy from him. And as fate would have it, since we were both interested in the same things, we battled many times at auctions, but he was always a friend, always very helpful, and a great guy, in my opinion.
He's in the big bookstore in the sky right now. And it's unfortunate, but sooner or later, I suppose, we're all going to join
I'll be
them.
there soon.
Well, I hope not, John. I hope not. How has the advent of the internet impacted you as a person and as a business? Were you able to make the transition to computers and computerized work easily? Was it difficult? What were some of your experiences in becoming a new age bookseller?
Well, the internet has been a great help to me, a great help, basically for the information available. I have no books on the internet. I have never had any books on the internet, and I probably never will, but the information that's available is just
Astonishing.
it's astonishing. And you know, the ABAA been very helpful with, you know, the OCLC and all of the benefits. That's been a great boon. And so a lot of book dealers say the internet's bad, but the internet for me has been great, even though I haven't sold anything there.
But its use has made your life a lot easier, probably. The fact that it's there, just the fact that there's a Google and there's a Yahoo, it's good for all of us.
Right. And Wikipedia.
When did you, when you left the Connecticut area, and when did you move up to New Hampshire to establish your new base of operation?
Well, when I left Connecticut, I moved to, I have to say I made a mistake, and I moved to Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
And, I bought a building in Newburyport, went to insure it. Well, it was almost impossible to get insurance, and insurance was triple of what it would be in Connecticut. But so I was there for a few years, and then I moved. I've been in New Hampshire now for probably 30 years.
Did you ever issue any catalogs or lists?
I did. I issued a mimeograph catalog way back when, I don't know the date, and I issued 7 or 8 catalogs. I started an auction company when I was in Newburyport. I had 5 or 6 auctions, but it wasn't the life for me. It was, I found myself sitting at a desk, so
yeah,
that didn't go. So
we just
let the auction company expire, and I continued selling books. And even though nowadays you can go to the farthest reaches of the White Mountains, and there's the proprietor sitting at the computer, gleaning, whatever they can, and it makes it tough to buy, but I generally don't buy the kind of things that you can find in bookstores.
When you were starting in the trade, John, were there any booksellers who were like mentors to you, or who gave you some good advice and maybe greased the wheels a little to make your bookselling career a little easier?
I would say the first one was Ivan Doherty, Bud Doherty. He was, his father worked for the Hartford Insurance Company, and he used to drive his father and Wallace Stevens to the canoe club in West Hartford. And he was always a little ticked that Wallace Stevens would always say to his father, "Tell the boy to take a left here. Tell the boy to go straight through the light." But, and I sold books for Bud Doherty. He had collections that Wallace Stevens had given to his father. But he was a mentor, and I would say Bob Seymour. I knew him basically because I used to go to he and his dad's book barn in Colebrook, and Bob and I became close friends.
And you still are?
We still are, yeah. And I'd say Cedric Robinson, and then Bill. Bill Robinson, in my mind, was a great scholar.
He was.
You probably know the A Certain Slant of Light, the book that he did on photography. A great book, important book. Made lots of money for me, that book.
Oh, yeah, and for a lot of other people as well.
I'm sure. But
so
Cedric and Bill were...
and Bob. And,
Bob, yeah.
Yeah, because, it's unusual to be in the trade for as long as guys like you and I have been in and still have the same friends.
Yeah.
It's really a testament to friendship when you have somebody. You and Bob have been together at book fairs as long as I can remember, and I think that's really great.
And Ben Tye, I'd have to say Ben Tye.
He's a name that people are forgetting, but he had some of the great stuff.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'd go to his house, 1755 Main Street, Athol, Mass. And he'd say to me, "John, At the time, I was still buying with grocery money, say. And he'd say to me, John, take these books. You don't have to pay me now. You've got to take these books. You're going to make money on them. They were books that I did make money on. And he'd explain things to me. He was very good.
You don't find that much today, do you?
No way. I have a photography album. I tried to find out from, I don't know much about this particular artist. I tried to talk with some photography dealers. It's hard to come up with anything good with all the waffling that goes on. You know, the first question is, how much do you want for it? Do you have it here? Can I see it? But I've always found Michael Hollander has always been spot on with me. If I need information that I think he has, it's right there, and it's not, how much do you want for it?
Now, he has, in his own way, helped a great many booksellers and has put up with a lot of abuse at the same time.
I agree.
But I've always liked him, and I've always been fond of him as a person and as a bookseller, and I'm sure you have too.
Well, his dad was a twin.
I never met his parents.
Yeah, I met them, and his dad was a twin. So I used to joke about everybody else, since I have an identical twin, everybody else is a half person.
Well, the half person who's asking the questions.
Okay.
If you were going to enter the book trade today, John, could you? Would you?
Since I fell into it by accident, I don't know, but if I came to a book show, say, and I think I want to be a bookseller, I think it would be pretty tough, although if you had a lot of money, you can be a bookseller almost instantly. Yeah. Basically, at least for myself, not that I might be a general, but before you can be a general, you've got to be a private.
Yeah.
But if you can go to Sotheby's and Christie's and buy all the big stuff, and you don't really, what you need is money.
Yeah, and as Doug Harding often says, own your own building.
Right, exactly.
That's probably a damn good piece of advice.
And Doug Harding has always been a friend of mine.
Doug's a terrific bookseller.
A great bookseller.
A good man and a good person.
Absolutely.
We've got a lot of challenges facing us, John, as booksellers, and I'm wondering if there's any particular things that you see as being challenges for us in the next 10 or 15 years that we're going to be here bookselling. We know the internet is going to evolve even more than what it is, but I'm wondering whether there's a challenge to finding material, whether there's a challenge to selling material, and what you feel about the comment, there are no new collectors, young collectors, there are no young booksellers.
Well, I really don't know anything about that, but I think that for me personally, there are no challenges coming. I'm going to continue to march, and I know things will change. I can't predict what changes will be or not be, but I really don't worry about it.
No.
I just
rock on.
I just rock on. Although nobody has been interested today in my early 60s rock and roll posters that I brought.
Really?
Grateful Dead. I've got Grateful Dead and a bunch of others with great graphics.
I would think that some of the younger generation would like that kind of
Well, the
stuff.
younger generation has not many of them show up at the book shows. Although I don't bemoan that fact, it's just, that's the way it is.
Are book shows your main source of book sales? No. I have my customers that I've been selling to, and somehow I have new customers all the time. Do you do a lot of quoting or phone calls?
Not really, no. Yes, phone calls and that kind of thing. I sell a lot more just privately than I ever sell at book shows. although I do very well in Boston. It's one of the best, to me,
For
the
you.
best book show in the world. I know everybody loves New York, but
Well, for the kind of material that you're selling, this is an excellent venue for you to do it.
absolutely.
I think it would fall flat in its face if you took the same stuff to New York and tried to do the same there as you're doing here. And you've probably tried that and found that out. That's Can you just think back a moment. I've asked a couple of people this question. Can you think about what is probably the most exciting thing that you've ever purchased, and what is the biggest mistake you've made, book-wise? Does anything stand out in your mind?
I'd have to think about that. I've had some exciting purchases.
Nothing.
I've had many exciting purchases that were not necessarily big dollars, and I've had some big dollars purchases, you might say, and I've sold some big collections, as you'd say, but I can't think of any one. I love them all.
Any big disappointments?
Well, I guess I really can't think of any big disappointments, but I could say if I've had a double B&B on the rocks and purchased books thereafter, when I got them home, they didn't look quite as good to me
Not the same, huh?
as when I bought them.
Well, I think that's probably a universal
Yeah.
thing. We come from an era of bookselling where there was a lot of material available. There were lots of open bookstores. There were lots of booksellers. And as time's gone on, in my opinion, the quality of the booksellers that are coming along doesn't match up to the quality of the booksellers of our generation. Do you want to comment on that?
I guess not. I couldn't comment on that. I think, well, just one who I guess in 10 more years will be sitting before the camera, Dan Gaeta, John Bale Bookshop.
Yeah. Dan.
Great bookseller.
Absolutely. Good bookman.
The first auction, I met him for the first time at an auction in Connecticut, and Bob Seymour was with me, and Bob knew him at the time. I didn't. He came over at the end of the auction and said, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" That's my period. It was 19th century stuff, so I've never let him forget that. When he buys a 19th century, I say, "Dan, what are you doing? That's my period." But he's a great bookseller.
He
and,
is.
There may be others that are not, but I don't worry about it. I really don't pay much attention to that. The material has never stopped for me. I've never said,
You've
there's
never
no
had any
more
dry
books.
days, huh?
well, I've had dry days, but I haven't had dry years.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the big things that people always talk about is, gee, you should have been here 20 years ago when there were books. Well, I think every generation probably says that.
Right. I think they've been saying that forever, but the books are there. You've just got to sniff them out.
And for those people who rely on the internet, there's a whole vast area of material that's now come to light that was never, ever known about.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's, again, another potential fertile field for buying. But you're just strictly an informational person. You're not doing any buying or selling on the internet, at least not at the moment.
Well, I have. I have done some very good buying on the internet, but
Okay.
you've got to be very particular because, well, I hate to use the term the great unwashed, whatever that might mean,
Yeah.
but so you've got to be very careful. But I have bought some very good things on the internet, but I don't do it very often. But I know there are things out there.
Are you still scouting for books on your like I do, get in your car and hit a few bookstores every now and then?
I do on occasion, but not as much as I used to. I used to, I'd buy Doug Harding's cast-off Mercedes during during the plate book craze,
Yeah.
Doug bought a Mercedes. We went salmon fishing in New Brunswick. He had relatives there. And there he is driving it at 65 miles an hour on cruise control. And I said, all the way, I said, Doug, I want to buy this car when you're done with it. And so he was buying a new Mercedes every year due to the plate book craze. So I must have had, I'd say I bought 4, maybe 5 of his used Mercedes. And I don't know how many miles he used to put on a year, but I used to put on maybe 50,000 miles a year. Now,
you couldn't do it if you wanted to.
Yeah, virtually none.
Do you have many people come to you by appointment? Do you get booksellers wanting to come by and see what you got?
No, I guess somehow they know that. Dave Lesser asked me a couple of years ago, and I said, Dave, I'm really not set up for that kind of thing. About 10 years ago, Ken Leach called me and said, John, guess where I am? And I said, you're at the Village Store in Rumney. Because where else? So Ken Leach came over. Jim Tanis came over one time.
Yeah.
I had a shelf of probably 5 feet of Andrus bindings that he looked at, called me later, but of course they were gone. Yeah. So I've only had 3 or 4 people. I think you were one of them.
Yeah, I was at your place on one occasion, but it's back too long that I want to remember.
Okay. That was probably 18 to 20 years ago.
Easily.
So you're probably one of 5.
The Magnificent 5?
The Magnificent 5, exactly right.
How many book fairs a year do you do?
I do Boston. I do the 2 shows in Hartford, Paper Mania, because my nieces live 10 minutes away.
Oh, that's good.
I do 2 shows in Concord because I'm 45 minutes from there.
Yeah.
And I do the Washington Book Show. That's a great book show, by the way.
That's a local book fair? That's not an ABAA book fair, is
Right,
it?
it's a local book show.
Who runs that book fair?
Concord Hill School.
Oh, right, yeah, that's...
Yeah. And that's about it. I used to do shows on Long Island and New York at the, I guess, 20, 30, whatever that's...
The Armory down there?
Not the ABAA. I've done the ABAA New York show, but...
The Armory that's like at 25th Street or something?
Right, yeah. And I think I've done a show in California, an ABAA show. I don't recall if it was either as a buyer or an exhibitor, but so I just do a couple shows close to home. And
Is book fairs a serious part of your business or a serious part of your life, or are they just something that you do?
They're a serious part of my life because of the people that I meet and the things that I sell. I really enjoy doing them. I don't enjoy preparing, and I don't enjoy packing up.
Yeah.
Show me one person who does.
I don't know anybody who does either.
But I enjoy them, but they're not a major part of my business.
One last question, John. Just for the record, I'm asking everybody the same question. Are you in this business till death do you part, or do you plan to retire at some point and say the hell with it?
Absolutely, till death do us part. I mean, how could it be any other way?
What happens to a bookseller?
I think Bob Wilson, I'm not sure, years ago, I think he was scouting someplace and stepped off the ladder and died.
Yeah.
And so who knows? I hope I die at home, but
the next best thing is
right. But I'll be out there forever. I don't think any bookseller can retire. It's not that kind of business.
I agree with you 100%, and I want to thank you very much for coming by and spending a half an hour with us. And good luck.
Thank you.